everyone, this is Pick4Life. In today's P4 review, we'll be taking a look at a new series from, I guess, Figure Complex is the name of the company. Their Amazing Yamaguchi line, which is powered by Revoltech joints. And this is the series number 001, Deadpool. And he's our favorite Merc with mouth. As you can see, he comes with this really nice packaging, very reminiscent of, the Figure Arts kind of line with the window and everything like that. Even the box feels very similar, and even some aspects of this feel very much like the Figure Arts line. Really nicely done. You can see a really nice image of the figure itself. It looks very awesome. A very more, I guess, cartoonish or comic-ish take on the character than, say, like the Marvel Legends Deadpool that came out not too long ago. And you can see images of some of the comics, some artwork. Deadpool sculpted by Yamaguchi Katsuhisa. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. And up at the top, you get some more information. You get some of his iconic yellow speech bubbles. I'm the insufferable Deadpool. Along the side here, you get some, just cool art. And even this Comic Sans-ish thing, font is very much like the SH Figure Arts line with some of the Dragon Ball figures. On this side, again, showing us some of the other faces and some of his weaponry. The Deadpool laying down on his name. Down here, you get a little cartoon, very much from like the comics, where he has a kind of funnily drawn Deadpool. Check out the chump in the Deadpool tee. A bunch of numbers here where you can probably order chimichangas or something like that. And then along the back is where you get a lot of the product images. Again, some more yellow speech bubbles. Very posable. I mean, that's what Revoltech and it is really known for providing all that range of movement. But you can see that here. All these kind of dynamic action shots with Deadpool being an assassin and, a highly trained martial artist and super agile. It's very cool to see some of that. You get to see the two different face sculpts he has, as well as his 5 sets of interchangeable eyes. And then you get a whole bunch of optional parts down here, like his hands. You get like, how many sets of hands is this? 1, 2, 3, and then the ones that come stock, the fist hands. That's 4. He gets 2 swords, 2 guns, a bunch of other stuff. And then right here, from what I can make out, I think it says 17 actual Revoltech joints and maybe 36 points of articulation. I'm just guessing, but that's a lot when it comes to packaging. One thing I did want to mention, though, is when you actually open this up on either side, if I can get it done, on both flaps, you get some actual optional cutout yellow speech bubbles. Here comes Deadpool. Ooh, is that a mall? I forget what's on this side. He has 2 more on this side. Would you just relax? And then obviously the Merc with the mouth will have some cursing going on. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this guy out of the box itself. So here we are out of packaging, and he comes with a bunch of stuff. This is even I can't even describe how much he comes with for this figure in terms of accessories. But he also has some real cool packaging. So this kind of backboard piece that was lining the interior of the box, very Wade Wilson-ish, with a knife in his mouth. It'd be awesome if you could recreate that, but you can't. Let's look down here real quick. So in addition to all the accessories that come with him, as far as replacement pieces, he also has this kind of weird effects stand. It's kind of a translucent pearl-esque color, and it's a little peg at the bottom that corresponds to the peg on his heels. It really only looks like it would work with his right foot in terms of just effects. I don't know. It would look kind of weird because it's coming kind of at that angle to do it the other way. I mean, it's nice that they included this. I don't really see a point to it. I honestly would have been happier if they actually had this be a yellow speech bubble that kind of pegged into the back here. I think that would have been cooler and more reminiscent of what you would have come to expect from Deadpool. But that's fine. I mean, it's cool that they did that. In addition, they also give you a figure stand. So this kind of 3-part figure stand is very, Tamashii Nation's figure stand-ish. So you can go ahead and plug this into one side, plug this into the base, and it looks like it's made by Kyoto. And as you would expect, the figure stand works as a figure stand. In addition to having this kind of clip system, or not clip, but hook system, that you can use to hold onto his waist or wherever, which works pretty well. You can actually not use this piece and make use of some of the ports on the back of, or I guess you could on the foot as well. I don't know. Yeah, so it works on the foot if you wanted to do that, or this main one on his waist pouches on the back. Or you can make use of any of the three on his chest as well. Or not chest, back. Come on. Not the chest, clearly. Anatomy. But yeah, you have a lot of options. And as with other figure stands of this kind, it's articulated in several places. And each of these joints have a small Phillips head, so you can tighten or loosen to meet your needs. Very cool inclusion that I wasn't expecting with this figure. I didn't know it was coming with that. So that's very nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at Wade himself, or Deadpool itself. And he looks really, really great. Let's see if I can do this easily without messing up all the accessories in the back. So doing a quick 360, he's really, really impressive looking. I mean, while he does have, kind of realistic features about him, you'll see clothes wrinkles and, details along all his clothing and everything like that. He also has a kind of a more animated look to him in the sense that his features are probably a little bit exaggerated. His head, the one thing I have about his head and his neck, or the neck seems kind of long in proportion to his head, but I think that's because the head is kind of tiny. You're supposed to be like 7 heads tall. Oh, actually that I guess that's maybe about right. I don't know, I was just doing this 1 2 3 4 5 6. Yeah, so maybe I'm just used to big heads or something like that. But that's the only thing that kind of threw me off. He looks really, really good though. Let's zoom in some of the. And I'm sorry, I'm actually sitting pretty far back from my. Here, let's kind of zoom in here like this. Getting into the lighting area, and you can see all these nice silver paint applications along here. The paint applications on his little logo on his waist. All the way down here, it's really nice and kind of a matte finish. You can see the musculature, really nicely molded all around. And it did come with a bunch of this plastic to protect all the paint, and even in the joints, you're probably going to have to disassemble or remove some of the joints on this guy to remove all that. The one thing I will say in terms of overall articulation or look that bothers me on this guy, or actually there's 2 points. One is this, so they use a double Revoltech joint, and I'll show you guys if you don't know what a Revoltech joint is in here. So you get a lot of extra articulation in the shoulders. I think it's a little more than necessary, but it does give you, again, some really cool dynamic posing. But the molding of the arm, the inside of the arm, is like really thin, and so it looks kind of weird. It looks kind of weird down here, but if you bring it out even a little bit, you can see how big of a gap it is. So I think if they filled this out a little bit more, it would have been a bit better overall. But you can work with it, right? So again, you can kind of hide the gaps if you're doing a good job about it, and depending on the angles that you're displaying them, you shouldn't have any issue. And it is nice to have that double Revoltech joint. The other thing I don't like is this this waist pack. This kind of utility beltish thing. It's on Revoltech joints here as well, but the problem is it just hangs loose on the front. I would have preferred it to actually be a whole loop and kind of secured that way loosely, as opposed to just hanging off. And you can have it like angled up in different ways, I guess, but having that extra point of articulation here, I don't think serves much of a purpose or benefit. And the last complaint I have is with kind of the overall look of this figure, is that the weapons here, the guns, holsters, and the knife, none of them are actually usable. So in the Marvel Legends, which we'll compare to a little bit later, you can actually store guns in the holsters and the guns come out. These guns, while really well molded and painted in this gunmetal finish, you can't like slide them in there. I would have loved that, and I think that's a really bad missed opportunity here for a figure like this. I really would have liked to see that, especially with the knife. Like all these kind of holsters, they're basically the same kind of holsters that you get with the Marvel Legends. And again, we'll show that off when we do some comparisons. So yeah, those are my major complaints about this figure in terms of, I guess, molding. Going into articulation, he does have, like I said, 17 Revoltech joints. There's one in his head. You can get a lot of angle there. Some head bob. There's one at the base of his neck. You can feel it ratcheting around, so you get a lot of movement there. You do get some gaps, but that would only be when you're doing kind of unnatural poses. He has the double one here. Go all the way around and do some funky stuff like this. He has one in the elbows, and this is where I'll actually show you guys if I can get it out. Come on. Okay, so yeah. So let's zoom in here. This is what an actual Revoltech joint looks like if you don't know what it is. It's two pieces of molded plastic. It just gives you a swivel when it goes to the socket on both sides. And then it also gives you kind of a, not ratcheted, but it's that ratchety kind of feeling that you would call with Transformers going in those directions. And since you can swivel all the way around in both sockets, you get a lot of range of motion and posability there. They do get some taking time to get used to posing them, because again, I might be trying to manipulate the upper joint, but maybe the bottom joint is swirling around. But yeah, you get used to it. I don't have that many Revoltech figures, but they do make the posability really, really nice and cool. They just make the figure look a little bit weird. So you can see how he has this weird kind of muscle there, and he has a weird muscle here, and kind of things like that. But for the most part, they're hidden, so they're really, really nice. He has another one at the hand, at the wrist, and you can see his thumbs up one compared to his closed fist one. I'm going to throw on kind of a gripped one. So this is for his gun and his sword. You can see he kind of has like the trigger pose action going on. No bicep swivel per se, but he has it at both points on the elbow, and then again, because of the way Revoltech joints are designed, he does have some swivel at the base of the shoulder. He has one big one in the middle here, so it joins the waist. So the waist actually doesn't have any separate articulation. It works off of the bottom peg of the, I guess, torso one. So you can hear that. That's where the joint is. It's plugging into a hole in his lower body. And so any kind of articulation you get from there is actually manipulating this big one in the torso. But he gets a lot. He can try to do what every guy has done in his life before, I'm sure. Then he gets some swivel at the top here, which is nice. Again, these things, they just, at least on mine, they tend to fly out quite a bit, so I don't like those. But again, you can move them around. If you want, you can actually remove them if you want to display it without them. It's a bit of a cleaner look, I suppose, if you wanted to do that. But then it breaks up the look there. So it's up to you. That will help us with the leg articulation, though. Show off how far he can kick. Back. And he does have a Revoltech joint in his... He does not. He just has a big ball socket joint here and at the thigh. He does have one at the knee. So again, you get kind of that swivel. He gets the swivel at the ball joint at the thigh. Even these kneecaps are on a small Revoltech joint. So you can get a lot of bend going on here and still cover up that joint fairly nicely, which is a nice addition. They didn't really need to do that, but it's nice that they did. And then he has one at the base of the foot. One cool thing here is that he actually has a X-Men symbol, the big X, on the inside of his Revoltech joint on the foot on both, which is kind of cool. It's only on one side, but it's nice that they did that. It's a small touch. And then he has a little bit of toe articulation going on, his little toe tilt, and then the peg on the bottom again for figure stands and such and so forth. The only times he gets a lot of a gap is on the back here and his waist, when you start getting him kind of slouchy, mopey, Deadpool kind of thing, like ooh. But otherwise, between that and his arms, the arms are really the big thing, right? This part I don't mind so much because it's the back, and you don't get much gap here unless you really force him into insane poses. So yeah, really great. We've already shown off the hand posability, the hand switching function, but let's actually go into the different hands. So we showed off the fisty hand, his thumbs uppy hand. Yeah, who's got two thumbs and two thumb poses? This guy. He has the trigger finger hands. Again, they're all mirrored. And then kind of these open, sprawling hands. I don't know what you want to call them. Sorry, I'm keep going off to the side over here. My camera's kind of weird. In addition to that, he does have a set of sheaths and swords, katanas, with his Deadpool symbol. These are actually not real sheaths for the swords here. They do come off so that you can simulate it if he has one in his hand, so it looks like he actually pulled it out, but it doesn't actually sheathe. Again, another downside compared to, say, the Marvel Legends figure. He does have 3 ports, so you can go in the center, or you can go on either side. I don't really know why you'd go to either side, aside from the center, except for the fact that I guess if you wanted to use it in conjunction with the figure stand, that you would need to kind of move it to one side. Who knows? It's up to you. If you're a weirdo that likes asymmetry, go ahead, do your thing. So he does have his swords. He has 2 of those. They just slide in really well. They are nicely detailed. So in addition to the nice silvery paint, it also has nice detail on the handle itself. Pretty soft plastic, so you're not going to worry about breaking it. But it's nice that you have that. And then he also has his gun. We showed that off before. Again, he has kind of a semblance of the Deadpool symbol there. Nicely detailed. And again, pretty easy to get in. If you wanted to the finger to actually get into his trigger area, you're going to have to rotate it around a bit. You just have to mess with it just a little bit to get in there. But there we go. He's got it. The other thing that he has is these 2 faces. So he has the regular face, which is kind of a regular face, smooth face here, and then he has one that kind of shows his mouth details and kind of a shock and awe, like kind of thing. And these are the default eyes that he comes with on there, was his wide-eyed. The way you actually replace the eyes, and so these sets of eyes here, down here, which we'll go into, you take this little tool here, which I didn't understand at first. It's a little tool, there's a little point at the end, and you just go in here and poke out his eyes. I know that sounds kind of creepy, but you do that, and then you can plug in any of the other eyes, and you can have him do kind of a winking or like, I don't know what's going on here, kind of curious kind of thing, which is a cool option. And then my favorite one are the emoji type heart eyes. Because it wouldn't be Deadpool if he didn't have some weird emotions, like with unicorns and so forth. So the different types of eyes are kind of his regular angry eyes, his heart eyes, his kind of open shock eyes. Then he has squinty eye. What I'm calling squinty eye number 1 is squinty eye number 2. So squinty eye number 1, I guess, is on the left, and even squintier eye number 2 is on the right. Anyway, they're not that different, but at least you have the option. So again, mix and match them as you will, however you'd like. And I forgot to show you this. This actually goes into detail on how all this all works. Again, with the eye poking on the back, and then the switching of the eyes, and then they talk about the sword and the sheaths and stuff like that. All that said, let's get all this out of the way, and let's do some comparisons to some other figures that might be in your collection. So, the only other Deadpool figure I have is, come on, zoom up, it's Marvel Legends Deadpool. And they're roughly about the same height. I think when I measured it, they're somewhere between like maybe 6.5 and 7 inches. A very, very different take. This one, the Marvel Legends, is definitely more gritty looking, I would say, more quote unquote realistic. And I'm sorry that I'm having trouble posing these guys. My shooting area is not a hard, flat surface, which sometimes causes me troubles. Okay, that's gonna have to be good enough. Oh, and now they're off center. So that's kind of how they look. Maybe scooch down a bit so you guys can see how they look in terms of on a level field. But yeah, this is kind of the look that they have. They're very different. He's a little bit brighter. He's a little bit darker with more tones. He does have nice shadowing effects that this guy doesn't really have, like in terms of paint. He's way more posable, but you would expect that in terms of what you're paying for, right? You're paying for like a $70 figure versus a $20 figure. And the weapons are obviously a lot nicer than the kind of molded gray, crappy soft plastic that really is what keeps me from collecting Marvel Legends at a large scale. So yeah, you can both see that they have the kind of sock mask that he's known for. The detailing is very different. You can see the way he has his swords are very different. So again, more comic booky with the Revoltech or Yamaguchi version that we're looking at today. And I like this one more. But that's not to say this doesn't look good. It's just a different take on the character. This is kind of what I would imagine he would look like in, say, that the DC Mortal Kombat Midway game, whatever it's called. Injustice. Yeah, Injustice. And here he is with another figure that's sort of the same scale. This is SH Figure Arts Iron Man, and I think this is Mark 43 or something like that. But you can see he's a little bit too tall. The scale can work, but you can see he's much bigger than Iron Man in terms of overall bulk. Even with height, you would expect Iron Man in his suit would be a little bit taller. You can probably make it work, but it's probably a little too big for that, depending on the characters you're displaying with. So I think that's it for the review. I mean, we talked a lot about his articulation. Really nice. Again, some of the poses that he can do are really fantastic. If you spent the time to do some of them, you can get really, really crazy posing. You can get him really wide stance like this, or really far front and back like that. His arms can go all sorts of crazy directions. He can actually do kind of like the cross arm pose. You see that sometimes, like this. He can probably even simulate arms crossing pretty well, just because of all the shoulder movement that he does have. Yeah, so you can kind of mimic that pretty well. So overall, my final thoughts on this guy is that he's an amazing figure. I'm really excited about this line. The next one coming out is Spider-Man, which will be coming out, I think, in January timeframe. And talk about needing a character that needs posability. Spider-Man is that guy. He does do all sorts of crazy, unnatural poses that these Revoltech joints will really take advantage of. Same thing with Deadpool to a lesser degree. The only other things that I'm kind of missing, aside from the molding complaints I had about these not being actually working holsters or anything like that, is also the fact that he doesn't come with another head. I actually probably would have preferred a unmasked face, which they don't do a whole lot of for some reason for Deadpool. They did it with Marvel Legends, which is nice. But it would have been nice to get another head with him, which is his unmasked, scarred, old avocado-looking face. But with all the accessories he already has, I can't complain too much about it. With the figure stand, with this weird stand, all this pile of goodness here, all the different eyes. I think they did a really, really great job with this figure. So I'm looking forward to the Spider-Man one coming out in January, and I'll get that and review that for you guys as well. Alright, so if you want to pick up this guy and add him to your collection, go ahead and click on the Toy Dojo link in the description below. Alright, that's all for today, everyone. Have a good one.